Okay, so my name's Cameron, and I'm going to be the second affirmative constructive speaker today. So again, our proposition or our claim is that we should, as the United States of America, abolish the death penalty. And first, I would like to start by refuting some of Mulan's points. In reference to her statistic of the high percentage of criminals returning to jail after being released, my partner and I, our claim is that with the abolishment of the death penalty, the next highest penalty which criminals that were viable for the death penalty would receive would be life in jail with no parole. This proves that Mulan's statistic, although accurate, would become irrelevant as criminals would not be released in the first place. In fact, a direct definition that I got, life without parole, stated from thelegalDictionary.com is life without parole is a criminal sentence that ensures that an individual who's convicted in court of an especially serious crime must spend the rest of his life in prison with no chance of release. So by making life without parole the new capital punishment, we also eliminate the need for an appeals process. This is very important because the appeals process is what takes the most time during death row for criminals. The appeals process, if you guys don't know as well, is something that allows death row inmates to plea to have their sentence reduced or reversed. So to give a little gist of all the steps in an appeals process for the death penalty in California, there are capital trials, then they have to have their appeal, which has to consist of a good reason as why their sentence should be reversed. The defendants can also go through habeas corpus proceedings, which raise additional issues. They can petition for a federal court, which they can only raise federal issues there. And then lastly, they can apply for clemency, which is a request to the state governor for relief from this death sentence. The New York Times reports that on average, the time spent on death row is 15 years, with more than 40% of inmates since 1978 being on death row for at least 19 years. As we stated earlier, from deathpenalty.org, it costs approximately $90,000 more a year to house a prisoner, which totals to $57.7 million annually. I wanted to expand on this a little. So, moreover, California has executed only 1% of people sentenced to death, to the death penalty in 30 years, which is why we're spending so much money on them, because we have so many that we still need to house if we're not executing as many as we were planning to. Natasha Minsker, an author and reporter of the Northern California chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, found that California can immediately save $1 billion by eliminating the death penalty and imposing sentences of life without parole. The alternative to this would be to spend $400 million, approximately, to build a new death row prison to house the growing number of prisoners. This is very realistic because in San Quentin right now, the death row facilities can house 715 inmates and currently hold 708. This money could be spent on bettering the country by increasing police officers on the streets or dedicating the money towards other trials to decrease the risk of innocent people getting convicted. My response to her claim that the government has a justification for these executions would be that there have been many executions that have gone horribly wrong in the past. The highest percentage of these botched executions are from lethal injection. In fact, 7.12% of lethal injection executions took a turn for the worse since they began and up until 2016, according to deathpenaltyinfo.org. One of the more recent ones that happened on February 3rd of 2016, just last year, Brandon Jones was to be executed by lethal injection. After 24 minutes unsuccessfully trying to insert the IV into his arm to kill him, the executioner asked a physician to violate several codes of conduct, several codes of medical ethics for assistance. The physician then spent 13 minutes stitching an IV near Jones's groin, and then 6 minutes later, Jones's eyes popped out and he was pronounced dead. He was also 72 years old at the time of his execution. This recent example proves how the death penalty and its executions can be extremely immoral and unjustified. It's immoral to put a 72-year-old man through that much intense pain to struggle for over 20 minutes as well. especially since this process of the death penalty was designed to be quick and painless. So it is not in our power or our government's power to justify these unethical killings, and we should not believe that the government can do these for any legitimate reason. My third and final point would be, with some calculations, we can prove that the death penalty on average does cost more money to house inmates than housing inmates with a sentence to life without parole. So, according to statistics on the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, the current annual cost for maintaining an inmate in a state prison is $44,000. The current annual cost for maintaining an inmate on death row is $134,000, $90,000 more. Since the average amount of years an inmate stays on death row is 15 years, if we multiply $134,000 by 15, we get an average of how much an inmate on death row would cost, which is approximately $2 million and $2,018,000 and $445. In order for an inmate with life in prison to compare to the average price an inmate on death row costs, the prisoner would have to be in jail for approximately 46 years. Only 2.5% of inmates last more than 65 years of age in prison, which would mean they would have to start at the age of 19, last all the way up to the 65, go past that. With this percentage is, of course, very small, which makes it incomparable to the average amount of money it costs to house a death row inmate for just 15 years on average. This concludes my second affirmative constructive